Well, jolly good morning to you all. Let me just put down my cocktail here.
5 o'clock somewhere, huh?
Well, you know us Brits, we've got to start early. I wanted to introduce something to all of you. I don't know if you've seen this. This is called yerba mate. Which country does mate come from? Mate. Italy. No? Argentina. Thank you. And Uruguay. That's where I just shipped on up from. I now live the winters in good old Montevideo. It's a huge agricultural country. Uruguay sits on the largest water aquifer in the world, and US citizens, whether you believe me or not, I am one, I went down there and you can buy land down there. Plus the government is currently giving 5 years of no taxes. No, the government didn't pay me to say any of this, but it certainly makes a lot of sense. I've spent 11 years in Montana, and before that I was in New York. So even though my shoes aren't very rancher-like, you can make fun of me now, but I go down to Uruguay in the winter, and I welcome people down there. Anyway, it's good to be here. What I wanted to do is get to the first slide here, and let's go back here. A lot of people say that the weatherman is not really reliable, and I'd like to kind of change that stance for you all this morning and say that it's very important to make sure that you receive forecasts from whichever source you may choose that always give a confidence. So, for example, we give 85% confidence levels of different forecasts, rather than saying, oh, there's a 30% chance of showers tomorrow. I'm going to give you the predictions going ahead through this summer, plus I'm going to talk to you about climate change and then about commodities. So, first of all, I want to read this out to you because, a lot of us have been talking about guns and we're all worried about our guns being taken away, and believe me, I'll be the first to be up back here in America holding down the fort if we have to take our guns away. But we need a revolution in weather. Alright, now read this. So you can clearly see that the projected path of the hurricane is going to hit anywhere from the East Coast to the Midwest to the West Coast of the United States within the next few days. Anybody can predict a hurricane hitting that far. So my question to you is, let's make it more precise. Let's get a revolution in weather. Let's get this wild factor that basically is 82% of the agricultural formula. Let's get it going so that we have a better forecast. Now look, today, I know I look a little funny, but I am going to give you some really wild stuff. Thinking out of the box. And to me in life, there's two directions. Following and leading. I followed a lot of people in my life, and now I prefer to at least have the goal to lead. And look, a lot of people who know me here, I've had 2 near-death experiences. Yes, I almost died. And when you look at death right in front of you, it's an amazing experience. And I want to show you this picture. This is where it all started for me. How many of you know what the picture on the left is? I know it's 8 o'clock in the morning, folks, but it's not a giraffe. It's a star constellation, all right, and it's spinning around into a general center. What's the picture on the right? Yes, and it was either Wilma or Katrina. Do you see any similarities? Okay, one is on Earth, the hurricane on the right, and one's out, God knows how many light years away. They look very similar, they spin around a common axis. This hit me one day, and it said to me, what is really going on? What's the bigger picture? See, to me, and I'm going to get into this in just a second, carbon dioxide is this big in the whole weather equation. What's the bigger force in the weather? We found it's electromagnetics. This is what this is. Electromagnetics is what makes mass or energy spin around a common center. Look up electromagnetics, especially planetary electromagnetics, in the Google or search engine, and you'll start really seeing how amazing this all is. Now, basically, I have to tell you this because a lot of people say, well, Simon, come on, you've got to use the models of the government. You've got to use the models that don't put into effect the water vapor. They don't put into effect the sun. And I started questioning all of this. All right? So, look, I say here, brilliant ideas start with the craziest of thoughts. And I wanted to let you know, this presentation is about a few crazy thoughts. And by the way, when I say think of exes in your life, this is not ex-husbands or ex-wives. I don't want to get you going in the wrong direction. This is examples of crazy thoughts bring about great accomplishments. Here's one, for example, Galactic Warping. It was in Scientific American a couple of years ago, and it taught about that if you want to travel from X to Y across the universe, you don't have to go laterally like this. There's actually a wormhole that you actually sort of fold over a piece of paper, and you can actually go from one side to the other without going that huge distance. Now, 10 years ago, that was a crazy thought. So what if I say to you, long-range weather forecasting can be based upon solar output? And if we measure solar output and the changes in that solar output, we can actually discover how each quarter of the year, going out 18 months, is going to be with climate. You say, I'm crazy. And you have that absolute, essential need to be able to say that. But let's talk about, first of all, the truth. And people say to me, well, Simon, you talk around the world, aren't you afraid of your life? You know what happens in Europe when you go against global warming? You get death threats. Because you don't concur with the government because you're going against the carbon taxation scheme. And I'm here to say to you that in the whole global climate equation, carbon dioxide is about this much and the sun is this much. There is no global warming. People are shocked when I tell them that. But you see, I don't get any grant money. I don't have to, worry about getting funds for the firm and grants and things like that. And so people are like, wow, damn, this British guy, American turn, is pretty damn blunt. Well, that's how I think it ought to be, because we've got some crises, we've got some challenges staring us in the face that I think are very important. And look, I'm going to tell you right here, the best crowd are farmers or investors, because they can smell a cow a mile away, especially a dead one. So here's what we've got. Look at this on the left with the guy in the little fuzzy there. This is the big freeze in 1977. How many remember how cold the winters were back then? Yeah, enough to freeze you know what's off, right? Look at number 2001, global warming. And then in 2010, they got a picture of a holiday blizzard, and now they're still blaming it on global warming. It's a complete farce. Complete farce. And I'm going to prove it to you. Here's it again. Time magazine, 1977, How to Survive the Coming Ice Age. And then in 2006, be worried, be very worried. It's all fear-mongering. Look, I've been to 67 countries, and I was just telling the lady on my table, 99% of things that happen are really optimistic. It's just that we've got so much fear put into it, especially in investing. There is so much opportunity out there. That's why we decided to go down and make an office in Uruguay. There's so much opportunity out there once you start looking at the real picture. Look at this. This is a real graph. This is without any data manipulation. There's been no global warming, no rise in temperatures around the world since 1999. So for the last 13 years, the natural climate cycle has been flattening out, and now it's beginning to cool. How many remember ClimateGate? Oh, that is sad that so many of you don't know it, because it was one of the biggest scientific data manipulations in history. What they did is, see where it says hide the decline in red. They found thousands of emails between my two greatest friends on the planet. You know what they say, always keep your enemies close. They hid the decline. In other words, temperatures were really declining in major cities around the world, but they said, wait a sec, the governments are telling us that we've got to prove that there's global warming, And they need to say that it's global warming because then they need to blame the carbon dioxide. Why do they need to blame the carbon dioxide? So they can tax your ass. And by the way, when I swear like that, listen up, because that's where it's really important. So, this is another graph that says basically the same thing. And it says in the top, right, global warming stopped 16 years ago, reveals Met Office, the equivalent of the National Weather Service in England. And here's the chart to prove it. Now, how much media attention do you think this article got? About this big, right? It's amazing what is shown in the media and what isn't shown. But once you start hunting for the truth, then you get the answers. It's kind of like when you go to the doctor for the flu shot. How many of you ask, what the hell's in this stuff anyway? Hardly any of us. We just say, okay, doc, give me the shot. We have to start asking the most important questions. And here's where I go. Right? Out on cloud 9, Simon the weatherman, out in space. But here's the answer. And look at this. This is the amazing part. It was my day. I founded Advanced Forecasting Corporation 20 years ago, this coming February 13th. And now NASA has just come out on January 8th and said that solar power changes the climate variability, and cosmic rays change the climate. I could hardly believe it. It was incredible that the sun's a major driver. And you're looking at me like, Simon, we knew that because the sun rises every day and sets every day, and yeah, it heats the planet. But you see, now there's this big battle going on. There's the global warming enthusiasts. I get Al Gore to my house every week and bat them out. And then there's the guys that are awakening and saying, wait a second, there is no global warming. So there's this big battle. And it's what I'm calling the awakening. This year, there's going to be so much awakening. How many of you have ever seen this? A chart of the solar sunspot activity. It goes up and down, up and down, up and down, and up and down. Thank you. Good. Thank you. So basically, for the last 400 years, we can track it up and down. So I had about 7 guys put in all the numbers into an algorithm, and they figured out, when the sun's going up and then it peaks down real quickly, there's a climate change. 92% of the time. Wow. Wow. So if we know that, that's incredible. Guess what's coming up this end of the March, beginning of April? A major solar flare with huge numbers of sunspot activity. We're expecting a huge global climate shift at the end of March, beginning of April, with 92% confidence. That's quite a good increase, wouldn't you say, from 50-50? Here's what NASA is showing us. And remember, I back up every single thing I'm telling you with science or government data. You don't have to believe me. I am here to awaken, just like somebody awakened me. This is solar sunspot activity. You see this right here? The Downton minimum. What happened in the Downton minimum? It was when the sunspots were so damn low, the world froze over. It was one of the coldest periods in history. In the 1700s, there was war, there was famine, there was more arguments between husbands and wives back then. It was terrible. And then there was a little ice age also when sunspot activity was low. You know what's really scary? Look at the right-hand side where it says 25. These are the numbers of solar cycles. How many sunspots do you see on cycle 25 all the way down the right? Yeah, let me jump off and show you. right here. Very, very few. NASA is expecting a huge cooling. Huge in the next solar cycle. Read up on a bit about it. Google it. NASA Cycle 25 cooling. It's big for agriculture. What would you love? Warming or cooling in the next 10 years? For agriculture. Not whether your butt sweats or not. What does the corn want? Warm. We want warmth. This scares me. Because it happens 92% of the time that this is correlated to climate change. Now look, this is 75 major temperature swings in 4,500 years. And do you remember back here in the Grecian Empire and the Roman Empire when it got so damn warm? Do you remember any factories back then producing carbon dioxide? I don't. So how do you explain that in the medieval warm period? How do you explain all these temperatures that were higher in 1300 AD? Was it more cows farting? I mean, I don't think agriculture was that developed back then. So I have to wonder. And you see where this red circle is? It's about 1342. Let me show you why that's important. Here's Steve Brewer's family at 1342. And they don't know about the shit that's going to start happening in the next year. They're really happy here. See, there's Steve's uncle throwing up money out of the window up here. But if you go back here, 1342, massive volcanoes started going off, and whammo! Down it went. Be careful, Steve. And by the way, let me just get something off my chest. You know when they say the size of Rhode Island iceberg is just broken off, and how we have to be so worried about it in New York? They just came out 2 years ago. You probably didn't hear this one either. But NASA just found out that most of the region around both poles on, yes, this planet, not talking about Mars, Earth, most of the North Pole and the South Pole are volcanic. And they are subterranean volcanoes. And let me just explain that to you, not to dumb it down. But this is volcanoes underneath the ocean that have these huge fissures or gaps that let out 1,000,000-degree gas and water and vapor, and they melt the ice from the bottom up. If you take your ice in your water, and you prefer to watch that for the next 15 minutes than me, you'll see that the ice melts from the bottom up also. In the winter in the poles, it's still freaking 40 below. So we're still talking about frozen conditions, but the ice is melting more when the volcanoes are going off. And the cycles, right? You heard 5 years ago, oh, we got the biggest ice gaps in the world. Now our ice is frozen over. It's volcanic. It's not carbon dioxide. All right. I think you get my point on climate change, where I stand. Have I made myself pretty clear? Good. So are we passengers or drivers? Look, on the top, planning for the wrong solution is disastrous. Governments around the world are saying it's going to heat up. And we're planning for the entirely wrong disaster with 92% confidence because we know that the sun is driving the climate. So I get up with passion every day. You can imagine I've almost been snuffed out. Somebody said to me in the elevator, "You ready to make some money today?" I said, "Sure, but let's be more joyful." That's my goal. Spread the truth and don't focus on the damn politics. Get into the science. All right. A few slides on TSTDTU. The shit they don't tell you. And look, if it wasn't so serious, it would be damn hilarious. Let me show you something here. You see the yellow circle? This is a satellite picture, all right, that we just took. It's from NASA or NOAA. And there's these little lines. And by the way, let me just tell everybody, if anybody wants this presentation, I give it out with my pure generosity. Ask for it so you can look at this, but there's lines. And we're looking at this and we're asking people in the government, I don't know what that is, Simon. Finally, somebody tells me. Then we start looking in that direction. It's chem dumps. You know, what? Chem dumps. Oh yeah, you've seen them. I'm not talking about the contrails, you know, those water vapor amounts in the sky that vanish after an hour. I'm talking about chemtrails. These are the ones that line and cross, and you think you can see maybe your uncle, like sometimes. Chemtrails. Dumping. You start looking into it, getting the research teams going. Ever heard of nanotechnology? Okay. Guess what they're doing in weather? It's called geoengineering, and they're putting nanotechnology, you can't see it, smaller than micro, little tiny mirrors that reflect back sunlight. Okay? Companies are putting this in the jet fuel. You don't have to believe me. Look it up. It's incredible. So remember I said to you I've been in 67 countries. Not that I'm boasting, but I start making notes. It's happening in the US, it's happening in Europe, it's happening in Australia. I go down to Uruguay, I see tons of jets going all over the place. Is there any chemtrails down there? No. No, because there's no agenda. Oh, Simon, you must be some conspiracy theorist. Check it out. Check it out. The reason why is now scientists are saying different things in the atmosphere when we dump technology like nanotechnology or chemicals in the atmosphere, they change the weather. That's my point. How about cloud seeding? Is that chemicals? Silver iodide. Dumping chemicals in the atmosphere produces rain. But this is more advanced. And look at the one on the right. If it wasn't so serious, it'd be hilarious. Scientists have applied to the government to get a $10 million grant to blow up an asteroid when it whizzes past Earth, and then they're going to magically use all the asteroid dust to come into the atmosphere and block out the sun so we cool down. They get more money than me, and you think I'm nuts. I've given you all the articles, and look at this. You see these giant sort of, you know, what do you call it? I don't know what you call it. They look almost like alien things. Standing up there, they're ionizers. If any of you have shopped on the Sharper Image or Brookstone, you can get these little portable ionizers, right? Negative ions makes basically you're more healthy. Hospitals use them. Look that up. It's pretty neat. But they get the big ones, and it ionizes the atmosphere, right? And then it creates a ton of rain. Swiss company magically is producing these, and they're using them in Dubai to make wheat out in the Middle East. There's the picture of the geoengineering watch, and here's a website that you can see. And look at this one. Amazingly, the military has got documents. You know how some things like magically show up that weren't meant to be there, or weren't meant to be seen? Well, we got a load of this one. That was a PowerPoint saying about how they do weather engineering to combat drought or climate change. And look at this. They are now using weather shifts technologically to defend against enemy capabilities. So you know what my hardest job is now? Not modeling natural weather, it's modeling the wild cards. Amazing stuff. Alright, what's this? Nobody knows. That's the greatest danger. When an entire population doesn't know what's going on, that's the scariest wild card. This is radiation coming in from Fukushima. Oh, come on, Simon, that lasted, what, months? That was 2011. Yeah, you know what my background is? My PhD was in particulate dispersion modeling. How a particle flows across. The Japanese government has just come out and said publicly that the radiation in Fukushima reactors will continue through 2016 because the radiation is so high they cannot stop it without making the robots to turn it off in the first place. So they have to make the robots first, then they have to close off the radiation. Now, I don't know about you, but this map came out from USGS, right? US Geological Society, plus it came out from NASA, and that looks like a bit like the US, doesn't it, on the right? Let me see here, wait, this is Japan. Radiation's coming in the US, guys. And, you know, last time I checked, radiation's not good for you. Wall Street Journal did an article. It's the Wall Street Journal, you know, reputable newspaper, in my opinion. They started saying that there's now radiation-tainted milk in Arizona. They've also started seeing that the cesium isotopes from Fukushima have entered into the hay in California. And this map is from the USGS with sampling different land samples, soil samples, and saying that the radiation is substantial. Check out ENE News. It's a problem. This is why I'm opening up eyes. Now you may say, well, Simon, God, if I got radiation in my Iowa fields in 5 years' time, what am I going to do? Here's one idea that has just started to come about. There's bacteria and algae that eat radiation. And I'm going to put it out there. I can't find it already. But anybody looking for a good investment, look up algae. Look up Klamath crystals in Oregon. The theory is you could put these algae or bacteria on the topsoil and till it, and over a 30-day period they eat all the radiation. Now, this may sound crazy. Simon, look, I just want to come here. I don't want to listen to all of this. This radiation is not happening. But we have to, as investors and farmers, and whatever you are, look at this square in the pants and say, what are we going to do? Now, I've already spoken to a few of you yesterday about this. One wild card that ought to be in every investment report, but I see so few where it is. 1% of them. China. China has 1.326924 billion people. And this is a map of the next 4 years' drought probability. It's from China. They know it. And you know what this is in orange? The Tibetan Plateau? It's the largest freshwater source in the world. And last I checked, water is really important for a lot of industries, especially agriculture. And they went into the Tibetan Plateau, and look, I'm going to just say something. It gets real sensitive here. I know there's Chinese people in the audience. This is nothing against the country. This is nothing against the Chinese people. But the Chinese government went into Tibet, not to strip those monks of their orange jumpsuits in the morning. They went in there to take control of the Tibetan Plateau. And here, I'm not showing you anything that I didn't find on the web that's been tallied up and proven. The one on the left and the one on the right show the largest construction project in the world. It's called the North the South to North Water Diversion Project. China knows that in the next 5 years they're going to have lack of water. The most populous country in the world knows that they don't have enough water for their corn and soybeans in the north. Why do you think they started importing more than exporting? Put the pieces together. Find out what's in that flu shot. Let's get into the weather here. This was from the New York Times. They very, very nicely put together a map of the US from about 100 years ago to 2012. The orange shading shows the drought. And as you can see, there is a lot of it. In 1934, over here, there was a huge amount of drought. Well, in 2012, there was a huge amount of drought too. They blame carbon dioxide. They blame the oil and the fracking and all the other stuff. I don't get paid by the oil guys to say this. It's not that. There was no fracking. There was no major oil industry in 1936. There was no major output in the Industrial Revolution in 1936 to give more drought back then. I'm just telling you the truth. That's all. I go around, I give over 100 presentations around the world a year to spread the truth. I was born on this planet to just wake up and see the truth. This is our current situation, folks. This is the precipitation needed to end drought. And I know you've all looked at the Palmer Drought Index and the Crop Index. This is what you need to see, and it's over 60% of the nation is under drought. And there's not much good news in changing this over the next few weeks. Now, this is how I learned weather forecasting. I'd say there's an 80% chance of rain, says Gilbert. Well, 80% chance of rain with 90% chance of being wrong gives us a 72% chance of sunny skies. This is how forecasts are made, and I said enough is enough. We have to do something different. So I'm going to go through this real quick. You just have to get the main tide here. 60% of the climate equation is on the sun, on the cosmic rays. I just proved to you that NASA just admitted this. 30% is due to volcanoes, methane burps. Yeah, even the Earth has some indigestion. And 7% is due to us. 7%. But it's not due to carbon dioxide. Right? It's due to population, urban sprawl. It's due to deforestation and so forth. And 3% is due to termites. Termites fart a lot. And there's about 1 trillion of them. And they give a lot of gases off that do heat up the atmosphere. Okay, let's get into the weather forecast for the next year ahead. And as you can see in the top right, hopefully you can see it at the back, it's a scale, a quantitative scale, not a 30% probability. This is an 80% confidence level of what's going to happen in the next 4 seasons. March, April is going to be really cold down the plains. We're going to see February-like conditions down the plains, and I'm forecasting late planting. A lot of farmers are going to get caught with their pants down around their ankles because they planted too early, because they think there's going to be a repeat of last year and the year before when it warmed up 3 to 5 weeks ahead of time. The opposite is going to happen this year. Then, in May, June, the plains are really going to heat up. And there's going to be huge volatility between these 2 months. Simon, how can you get so specific? Solar cycles. All those big climate features that I explained to you about. And again, when you get these slides and you look at them, you can have this for free. Look carefully at how we're forecasting. Look at July and August in the bottom left. Heat waves up the plains. September and October, more heat. Here's the precipitation deviation from normal. Red is less than 25% of normal precipitation. The purple is 600% above normal. So let's go train our eyes to the top left. Iowa looks decent. The white means normal for the spring, March and April. So thank God we are going to get some precipitation. So my caution to you on this is this. Everybody's thinking that corn's going to go through the roof due to the massive drought that we're having right now. Be careful. Because if this precipitation forecast pans out, it'll be the first major rains in Iowa in many months, and corn will go down a lot. So watch this carefully. However, get ready for the next bump up. May and June in Iowa goes very, very dry. And in July and August, the northern half is near normal, but the further south you go towards southern Iowa, the border, much, much drier. And in September and October looks non-disruptive for harvesting. So there are some silver linings, there are some good things here, but overall, I'm going to show you if we're bullish or bearish. Here's the troubling factor. This is soil moisture. March, April, May, and June. And where it's brown, this means below normal soil moisture. What do you see happening in all 4 months? Dry or wet? Very dry. And this is a back-to-back drought. 2012 was drought. The winter, 2012 to 2013, is a drought. And we're forecasting a lot more drought in the summer too. A lot of us don't even look at the global picture. Does it matter what's going on in Kazakhstan? Some of us don't even know where that is. It's very important because they grow a lot of wheat out there. And this year in March, April, May, it's going to turn very hot with about 80% confidence. That's going to play in the world market on the grains. It's also going to be very cold in the spring in Europe. So planting is going to be getting off to a late start there too. As I say, this is some of the consulting that we do for different clients, but I'm not marketing today. I'm just saying to you, keep an eye on the weather worldwide, because the percentage of the global significance in an investment or commodity forecast is growing. It used to be about maybe 5-6%, look at the global stuff, and now it's about 13%. So let's go over some of the shocks. This is what we do on a weekly basis or quarterly. We give all of the commodities on the left and all of the regions on the right. And the red squares are bearish and the green ones are bullish. And we are calling for this winter to see bullishness in the meats, in the live cattle, in the lean hogs, in class 3 milk. We're calling for the reds in South America to be bearish. We're getting heavy rains in Brazil, Mato Grosso. And we're calling for increasing drought in Asia with bullishness on rice and soybeans in the spring. Again, lots of information here. You're more than welcome to see the chart. Let me get into this real quickly. 22 different climate zones in the US. Let's look at region number 12. Right? And region number 5. Remember 5 and 12. And I'm going to go through some really sort of little minuscule numbers here on the next slide. You don't have to see them. I'll show you what's important. We've got the months across the top, and then we've got those zones going down from top to bottom. This is basically a yield expectation deviation based on all of the weather parameters that I was telling you about. We forecast whether the yield of the general commodity index is going to be up or down. And if you look at 5, northern Iowa northward to the upper Middle West is plus, sorry, is that number 5? Upper Mississippi, minus 12. So we're expecting a 12% deviation below normal in the commodity yield because of the heat and because of the drought. And if I go to number 12, I see a +2. So overall, AFC and myself, in studying this carefully, we are forecasting a general bullish trend in the commodity index this summer. Here's what I want to go into the details, and this is what we get into, the impacts. We're not just forecasting 38 degrees and partly cloudy. Here's corn in the top left, top right. The darkest green is, of course, where the highest yields are. The map on the left is taking all those zones where corn is grown. 5 out of the 7 corn areas are negative yields expected due to weather impacts. So we are forecasting the price to be mainly up in steps due to those weather shocks, the late planting, the sudden heat, the dryness. Those are the weather shocks. The silver lining is where it says the 0 in the left-hand side. That means neutral. And the Great Lakes and Ohio River Valley area will see above normal yields. But overall, watch out for these volatile things. And especially, here's the wild card. If in the news tomorrow, a government report got leaked and went on Fox News or CNN and said, we've just developed some new tests and the soil shows some radioactivity in southern Minnesota, what do you think's going to happen? Be ready for these. I'm warning you ahead of time because we do keep a tab on government entities. There are more whistleblowers out there than you could name, like out of Department of Homeland Security. People come out and they just want to get stuff online and they want people to know what's happening. Here's soybeans. I'm less bullish on soybeans because obviously soybeans is grown more in the mid to lower Mississippi Valley where it's absolutely going to be great. There's going to be more than enough rain in those areas. And I'm thinking that we could see a real diversion that corn may be going up a lot, but soybeans may only go up a little bit. All right. In summary, I have 3 rules to tell you here today. The people on the left go into work every day and they look at their 4 monitors with all those flashing green and red marks, stock up, stock down. And their only concentration is that moment. They come back after lunch, they see the same greens and the same reds. You know what I do in my calendar for half an hour every day? Not a lot of people know this. It's called strategic meeting. Got my feet up on my desk, I've got a blank piece of paper and a pen, and I'm writing down things I'm thinking about, connecting jigsaw puzzles. How is that radiation going to maybe affect US land prices? Because the reason why I'm telling you is there's a simple fact in atmospherics that radiation in the north doesn't enter the southern hemisphere. You start to see the picture? Why do you think we invested in Uruguay? Not because I don't love the US. We have to diversify our risk. Uruguay, northeast Argentina, southern Brazil may become in 4 or 5 years or less a premium agricultural market. I'm not telling you to sell your land in Iowa. I'm telling you, if the Uruguayan government is saying that you can buy land in Uruguay and have 5 years of no taxes and come on down with a red carpet, it might be just worth looking into. My shout. Think ahead and connect the dots. We can adapt to disruptive forces. This is the United States of America, and I proudly wear the flag. So I did not jump off the ship, but I try to be the smartest investor I can, I try to be the smartest weatherman I can, and I try to get together with the smartest people I can to share the smartest ideas. This is why it's important. Forget 70% of the weather. If you look at the gray middle one below the red line, and you look at the clouds and the blue sky, that is 90% of the weather. And 90% of the weather only causes 10% of the financial impact. It's an amazing rule. It's 90-10 rule. Let's go to the opposite. The top two pictures above the red line is severe weather and record-breaking weather. That is only 10% of the weather in the world, but it produces 90% of the financial impact. That is the stuff you have to rely on. Most investors are too busy looking at all the model changes every 6 hours. What, did it go sunny? Did it go partly cloudy? It doesn't matter. Look at the long range and you'll get 90 out of the 10 hits. This is amazing. And I invite any one of you to email me for free, and I will help you develop your connective web strategy. These are all of the SWOT in your life: the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats. Look at the top. It says radiation, other environmental dangers, persistent extreme weather, government failure, severe income disparity. All these things are connected in some way. And when you go out of here today, you have to figure out, like I do, which one of these is going to break the camel's back. Which one is going to be that next wild card that sends corn to $10 or to $4? These on the left are the 6 things that I put in my mind every day. Plan ahead, shape your strategies, minimize your risks, pinpoint opportunities, optimize decisions, and improve margins. Once you are in the know, then you can get an edge. And let's all read out together my last slide, because I just love this. Man-made global warming, all right, you ready for it? Causes the following. Now read along with me. What does it cause? Very warm weather. Very cold weather. Come on, all together now. Weather. Falling autumn leaves. Falling presidential approval ratings. Warming on Mars. Squirrel attacks, and balding climate scientists not being able to get dates. Fortunately, I'm married. Thanks, guys, for your attention.